Hey there everybody, my name is Kat Bowser. I'm your resident fantasy therapist and welcome to my channel. Those of you here for the first time, welcome. My name is Kat Bowser. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm also a writer working on my first novel. And on my channel, I like to dig into the psychology behind writing, so the heart of the characters. So that is the angle that I will take with pretty much everything I talk about on my channel. So today is a little different. It's not quite what I would call a trope diagnosis video, but it kind of is. So I'll just call it a discussion video, I guess, just to be simple. I do have a trope diagnosis that is going to be coming out on Thursday. It's actually a combo of two tropes that were recommended to me, and as I was going through and researching them, it really makes more sense to put them all in one video. So the one on Thursday will probably be a little longer than my usual ones, but we'll cover both. So for today, I wanted to talk about something that I've seen on Twitter, I've seen on writing groups, I have seen discussed on the AuthorTube Facebook group. I've kind of seen it everywhere, especially lately. And it really made me think, and I thought I want to do a video on this. And that is, writers, stop acting like being an introvert is a flaw to be overcome. I see this everywhere, especially in fantasy, action, that kind of thing. Basically, the idea is that at the beginning of the story, the character is a very strong introvert. You know, they keep to themselves, they don't really talk to anybody. And over the course of the adventure, they come out of their shell, and by the end of the story, they're an extrovert. That's not how it works. First off, being an introvert is not a flaw. It's just a way of being. It is a personality trait. And it's not a negative one. And I think it really gets a bad rap because I think generally we overgeneralize things when it comes to an introvert and extrovert. So let me clarify this a little bit. First of all, asking someone if they're an introvert or an extrovert is really a bad question because it's not a yes or no question. Introversion and extroversion is a spectrum. So over here you have extreme introversion, over here extreme extroversion, and you fall somewhere on the spectrum. But here's the thing, it's not fixed. It moves. Let me give you guys an example. So for myself, most of the time, if I am in a new scenario with strangers or an environment I don't know, I'm going to fall closer on the extreme end of introversion. I'm not going to speak out very much unless you talk to me because I'm unsure of what the expectations are and so on and so forth. However, if I go to a conference for, like, say, my therapy license, I have my therapist hat on, and that makes it a completely different scenario. Now I am more leaning toward the extroversion because I'm asking questions, I'm trying to make connections, I am actively engaging in conversation. And then there's the third one where I'm not wearing my therapist hat, but you put me in, like, let's say, a Comic-Con. This is one of my hobbies. I love anime, I love comics. If you put me in a Comic-Con, you're going to think I'm a complete extrovert because I'm going to be engaging, I'm going to be hugging, I'm going to be dancing, I'm going to be shouting, and all that stuff. Because in that scenario, I'm an extrovert because I know what to expect, I know how to connect with these people, and that's where I'm comfortable. So that's the thing, is asking someone if they're an introvert or an extrovert is really not a fair question because it varies depending on the scenario, depending on the situation, depending on where you're at. And what unfortunately seems to happen is people take traits and they loop them in with introversion or extroversion. So, like, for someone that's an introvert in fantasy, for instance, most of the time they stick to they stay in their room, they read, they don't talk to anybody. They're not interested in the worries of the outside world. They're not very assertive. They're just kind of a rollover, pushover kind of thing. And that's a problem. Because the thing is, introversion and extroversion, let's clarify what they actually mean because society has warped those terms so much. All that means is where do you divert your energy? On external forces, extroversion, or internally, introversion. That is literally all it means. Are you more focused on being introspective and thinking and things like that? Are you more interested in engaging with people? That is literally what it means. Another way I sometimes describe it to people is where do you recharge? Do you recharge better with people or do you recharge better by yourself? That's another way of describing it. But what stories and authors have done is they have looped in these traits with introversion and extroversion that aren't necessarily connected. So, for example, being assertive and setting boundaries for yourself is not a trait that is only extrovert. It's introvert too. It is completely separated from being an introvert and extrovert. It is a completely different set of skills. But in fantasy, especially, someone who is an extreme introvert has none of these skills. It's not entirely accurate. Likewise, being an extrovert, usually this is someone that is very good with people. They can rally the troops. They can keep anybody's attention. They're funny, that kind of thing. Again, these skills are not all contained in extroversion. They're completely different skills, but we're lumping them together. And so I think what really needs to happen in storytelling is we need to separate them again. Someone who is an introvert, who likes to spend time by themselves, likes to read, likes to write, is still capable of telling someone, you're getting in my personal bubble, back up, leave me alone. They're still capable of wanting to go out of the house and do other hobbies. Someone that is an extrovert does not necessarily mean that they are an expert at gathering groups. It does not necessarily mean that they know how to lead people. Again, these are looped in, but they don't compute necessarily. I'll use an example for you guys from one of my favorite books, which is The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Bilbo Baggins is an introvert. That is made very clear. But the thing is, and this is what I love about what Tolkien did with this story. Bilbo starts The Hobbit as an introvert. He ends the story as an introvert. He starts Lord of the Rings as an introvert. He ends Lord of the Rings as an introvert. But the lesson that he learns along the way, he still learns. Like, say, in The Hobbit, the main issue was that he was concerned with being a respectable hobbit, being essentially held high by the other hobbits, and he didn't want to necessarily go out into the world. He thought that exploring the world via his books and his maps and everything was perfectly fine by him. And as Gandalf was quite fond of telling him, the world isn't in your books and maps, it's out there. So after Bilbo goes on his adventure and bonds with the dwarves and sees all these grand things, he goes back home different. He now has seen the world, and so he has a completely different view on what is important and what is worth kind of getting in a huff about. But he's still an introvert. He engages mainly with the kids in the Shire. Like they kind of know him as a storyteller by Lord of the Rings and as kind of the mad Mr. Baggins. But he doesn't become an extrovert. He has the One Ring, the most powerful artifact in Middle Earth, and he uses it to avoid social confrontation. He is still very much an introvert. He says to Gandalf he wants to go and explore the mountains again. He wants to see the mountains again, see the forests again, see these places he has gone to before. But then he wants to find a quiet place to just sit down and finish his book. That's what he wants to do. He's still an introvert, but he has learned his character arc. He has grown. He's not the same, but he's still an introvert. And I want to see more of that. And I get why authors do this. It's usually because you want to show an extreme shift of the character's growth. And the easiest way to do that is to take what they were at the beginning and have a harsh contrast for where they are at the end. But what I'm saying is, let's separate these personality traits from introversion to extroversion because they're not the same. If you want your character to become more assertive, do that. That's great. That's a great character arc. But that doesn't mean they suddenly become a party animal and an extrovert. If you want to say now your character is more aware of things that go on outside their little realm of existence, they are more aware of the issues that other people are suffering, they have more empathy, that's a great character arc. It doesn't mean that now they go out every day and engage strangers all the time. That's not what that means. So I think that's my point in this video, is that let's get what introversion, extroversion is correct, and then let's address the other character traits that we want to grow or change. Because like I said, I'm all for a strong character arc, but let's not act like being an introvert is a bad thing, because it's not. So that is just my thoughts on this subject. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this subject. As always, you can leave comments below and I will respond to them as soon as I can. If you like this kind of content, make sure you subscribe, and I will let you know whenever I upload. I try to upload every Thursday, every Sunday, unless something happens in real life. Like this week, my mom's been sick, my husband's been sick, and now I think I'm getting sick. So it's not been a fun week, even though it's been a 3-day weekend. But I will try to stick to Thursday and Sunday as much as I possibly can. And I hope you guys have a good one until I see you again. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.